What is up, Frog Lover Nation? Nah, it doesn't sit quite right. Take that off the list. How do you do, slimy folk? Yeah, no to that one either. Well, greetings. My name is Thech. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to my yap about the strategist role in Marvel Rivals. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll post a link to the last video in the description, or there should be a card around here somewhere that will take you to that video. Pause this one, go watch that one so you can understand my take on it, and then come back and watch this one. But today we're going to be looking at every one of the strategists in-game as of Season 4.5, and I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks about their kit, and how I have found them to be useful, or, unfortunately, not so useful. With that real brief intro, let's go in alphabetical order. Starting with Adam Warlock. The Perfect Man has an interesting kit. He heavily sits on the healer side of my gradient because, well, all he does is heal. He's the one character I don't even have an hour on when it comes to strategists, so take what I say with a grain of salt. I also have no footage of gameplay with him, so sorry, editor. His kit is quirky, to say the least. His primary way of healing is using an ability that chains between allies and heals everyone it touches, including himself. He gets 2 charges of this before it goes on cooldown, but the cooldown is shortened by either dealing critical damage with his primary fire, Quantum Magic, or hitting targets with his secondary fire, Cosmic Cluster. His other healing ability, Soul Bond, connects all nearby allies together and gives health over time, as well as shares damage across the links. So if you're shooting at one guy and he's soul bonded, you're doing a little bit of damage to everybody instead of a lot of damage to one person. His ultimate, called Karmic Revival, is a bog standard revive all button. Hit the ult, and if you complete the animation and stay alive, all dead allies will resurrect in the ultimate's area. He also has a self-revive that he can hold for 14 seconds that he gets every 105 seconds. So if he dies, he can come back every once in a while. Due to his kit relying on proximity to allies and proximity to enemies for cooldown management, Adam is more of a front-line strategist. Stick close to the front line, poke at squishies that you see, and pop the life stream and soul bond as the fight goes on. This will also mean you'll always be in prime real estate for your ultimate. Cloak and Dagger, Yin and Yang, Light and Dark, the only character in the game with 2 kits, and, coincidentally, the character that sits almost in the perfect middle of my strategist gradient. One of the easier strategists, the difficult bit of how they are played fully stems down to how or when you swap between the characters. Dagger has homing daggers that she can throw around that heal allies they touch, as well as allies in a radius around the target. This is important because you can hit enemies to do a teensy bit of damage, but also heal the ally that is engaged with them. She also can fire a healing wall that applies a bit of burst healing as well as boosts incoming healing. So, you throw the wall, then you can hit them with your daggers to do a little bit more healing than you can typically do. Finally, her last bit of healing kit, she can throw down a bubble that does healing over time to allies standing in it. I'd recommend either keeping this to help survive dives, or throw it at your front line to keep your vanguards or your frontline duelists in battle. While Dagger has the healing part of the kit, Cloak has more of the support part of the kit. Cloak has a beam for his primary fire that will lock onto nearby enemies and do damage to them constantly. While not as flashy or useful as Dagger's, the beam is incredibly helpful at cleaning up after team fights or finishing off fleeing dive characters. He also has an ability that's pretty much the inverse of Dagger's Wall of Healing. When his wall hits enemies, it blinds them and inflicts them with vulnerability, which amplifies damage they receive. Combo this with Cloak's primary fire to do a high amount of damage in a pinch. Cloak's last ability allows him to go invisible and not be targeted. This also extends to allies in the radius as long as they aren't using abilities. This is very, very, very strong against ultimates and will absolutely keep you alive in a lot of these situations because you can just poof out of existence. Cloak and Dagger's ultimate is one of the strongest strategist ultimates in the game, as you combine the light and dark to make 4 dashes, covering an area in a healing area for allies or a damaging area for enemies. Cloak and Dagger are best suited to rotate between front and back, sticking with their vanguards and helping pick off enemies. Do your best to swap between the two, staying back as Dagger before pushing in with Cloak. When you pop your ultimate, keep your head on a swivel as every enemy is going to be trying to kill you to get you out of your ultimate. Invisible Woman. Invisible Woman sits close to the middle of the gradient, primarily because of the amount of utility she gets. Her primary way of healing is her primary fire, which heals when it hits allies and damages when it hits enemies. It also rebounds back to her and does additional healing and damage on that rebound. However, the original shot leaving her does more healing and damage than when it returns to her. So try and hit your allies or enemies on that first part of the attack. She also has a shield that she can put up, which heals and protects allies, and if enemies walk through it, it will actually slow them. Her ultimate puts up a massive force field, which makes her allies invisible if they're standing inside of it, as well as applying healing over time and slowing enemies. Which brings us to the rest of her kit. Her push and pull ability allows her to push enemies away or pull them back into fights. Use this to help pick off low health or out of position enemies. Submit to the power of the boop. Submit. Submit. Besides her push and pull, her force bursts puts down a damaging field that slows enemies and pulls them towards the center. It can also be used to have a grounding effect on flyers. So, shoot it up at an Iron Man that's out of position, and that Iron Man will start coming down to the ground. She's also the only character in the game that can go passively invisible, where she remains invisible until she uses an ability. Then, after a few seconds of being disengaged out of a fight, she will return to being invisible. The only person that can see her while she is invisible is Daredevil. Also, much like a Lego girl character from one of the Lego games, she has a double jump, and if she is not invisible when she does her double jump, she will become invisible on that second jump. All in all, Invisible Woman's kit allows her to be flexible in her positioning, able to take off angles to do healing or boop an unsuspecting enemy off the map, or moving with the team and helping disrupt the enemy team with her force burst and push-pull ability. Jeff the Landshark. The boy! The cutest little scientific experiment known to man. Just a little guy to his friends, and known simply as the Bastard to his enemies. The easiest healer to play in Marvel Rivals, and his kit reflects that. He's also the only character in the game to have a near full rework, and his role has entirely remained the same. His primary fire is a fire hose of water that heals allies and does damage to enemies. Simple as. He also has a right click where he can spit out water that damages enemies and can cause flyers to drop out of the sky. He can also knock back enemies it hits. He can spit out bubbles that when he or an ally walk into, generates a little bit of burst healing as well as some healing over time and a little bit of a speed boost. And his last ability allows him to channel his inner Chuck Norris and swim through the ground. He can do this for short bursts before needing to come back up, but comboing it with bubbles allows for a reliable way to escape most combat situations. His ultimate allows him to dive underground, leaving a pool of his healing water behind before he can either snap up his enemies or his allies. Allies he eats are healed over time, while enemies are damaged over time. If you have a mouthful of enemies, seek the nearest ledge, and remember, spitters are quitters. This shark is an absolute demon on the flanks, able to heal consistently and run back to safety if needed. Use your ultimate to disrupt enemy lines or ferry your team back to the point, and you have a recipe for probably the greatest healer in the game. Loki, Trickster God. Loki enters the game as a healer as well, but he brings the party wherever he goes. Because he has clones. He has lots of clones. Loki's kit revolves around throwing clones down and then using them to boost his healing to allies or damaging his enemies. He also has a lamp ability, which drops an invulnerability field around himself and his clones. He can swap places with these clones or go invisible and drop a clone where he went invisible. Being invisible does allow him to self-heal, like with Invisible Woman. The main attraction of his kit is his ultimate, which allows him to shapeshift into a character that he can see and use their abilities and ultimate ability. While he is a difficult character to play, his playstyle really isn't that complex. Place some clones by the front line to handle healing, put down your lamps when you need to, and try to grab a strategist ultimate when you can. Luna Snow, the K-pop star, the unshakable top-tier strategist who has weaponized my heart after doming a Jeff as Black Widow. Another healer on the gradient and most people's first introduction to the strategist role. Her primary fire heals and damages, which you can tell is a common trend in strategists. She also gets a snowflake that she can put on allies that will share healing with whoever she is currently healing at the time. She also gets a penetrating ability that does a lot of burst healing while also damaging enemies. And finally, she gets a snowball that freezes whoever it hits. She does have two passive abilities. One that allows her to essentially sprint whenever she is moving forward after a little bit. It makes her very mobile. But also, whenever she uses her snowball or her burst heal ability, she gets passive healing back. That is the only way that she can self-heal, is by using those abilities. Her ultimate is one of the strongest in the game, providing a moving invulnerability field or a moving damage boost field that you can manually switch between. All in all, her gameplay loop puts her strongly in the backline of the team, providing heals at a distance while keeping dives at bay using her snowball, before jumping into the fray with her ultimate. She's a good place to start if you already have a strong understanding of Marvel Rivals' core gameplay mechanics. The Lovable Mantis, a couple limbs short of being a real one, and the first definitive support character on the Strategist gradient. She's one of the newer characters that I've picked up, and I really have been enjoying her kit. Her kit revolves around her leaves, which she has 4 of, and which allow her to heal or buff her allies. She can also use them to buff herself in a pinch, though I strongly recommend you focus on buffing your allies. Her primary fire does no healing, which is a breath of fresh air after all of those characters that can't choose what they want their primary fire to do. Much like Adam Warlock, headshot or critical damage decreases the cooldown for regenerating leaves, so get used to headshots. You also get a little sleep grenade that allows you to sedate a target, so long as Star-Lord doesn't get a little upset. Her ultimate provides a massive amount of healing over time that gets converted into bonus health when the target is at their maximum health. It also provides a movement boost to allies in the area. Did I mention it's a radius around you? Did I mention you can also use your abilities while ulting? Man, this character is so much fun. Due to the small amount of healing she puts out relative to the healers of the strategists, she doesn't really see a lot of play outside of triple support comps. But when she does see play, she can help her enemy rack up kills as she keeps her leaf buffs up, as well as shut down some ults and dives with well-placed sleeps. A good all-round support style character.
Now I'm standing. You all happy?
Rocket Raccoon. Rocket, the man, the myth, the raccoon. Another support character and the second easiest character on the strategist roster. Like his fellow Guardian Mantis, he is a solid support strategist. His primary fire does actual damage with no heals. His secondary fire shoots a bunch of yellow balls that bounce around all over the place, slowing down around himself or allies to provide a decent amount of healing. He also gets a lot of movement capabilities, having a dash from his backpack and the ability to run around on walls indefinitely. His most important piece of kit, arguably, is his Battle Rebirth Beacon, or BRB, which periodically produces armor packs and jetpacks, but also can revive a single teammate before it goes on cooldown. His ultimate is a Cosmic Yarn Amplifier, or SIA for short. Wow, someone at NetEase was cackling making these names. Which, the ultimate provides a little bit of healing and shields, but a massive damage buff to allies in the radius. Rocket's kit is the perfect example of what I mean by a support kit. He has decent heals, but the majority of his value comes from damage boosting his team and keeping his team in the fight with revives. Play him on the flank and keep the BRB handy. And try to time your ultimate with a duelist ultimate to give them that extra bit of oomph. If you want to understand what I mean by a support strategist rather than a healer, this is the character to start with. And finally, last and unfortunately least, Ultron.
Scream and your entire staff dies.
Evil robot man. Wasted potential in the MCU, and the character that I look at and go, look how they massacred my boy. He is another example of a support strategist. Ultron is a flyer with a laser that ramps up damage before a big burst at the end. His healing comes from a drone that he can place on a character that generates a teeny bit of healing to the person holding the drone, and then a little less healing to the people within a certain distance of the drone. His other healing ability allows him to give allies in his vicinity an overshield, as well as allies in the vicinity of the drone. His last non-ultimate ability is a speed boost to his flight, so his kit is nothing really crazy. However, all of that is traded in for possibly one of the fastest ultimates to charge in the game. Ultron is joined by 5 of his bodies to fire a 3-burst laser that heals allies and damages enemies for roughly 10 seconds. Unfortunately, due to recent, in my personal opinion, unneeded nerfs, Ultron's kit heavily lags behind the rest of the strategist crew. He sees most of his play in triple support comps, where he can put his drone on somebody and farm ult charge until he shoots that off. There isn't really much more to say about that when it comes to his kit. That's all the strategists. Now go, take this knowledge and go play the role. I hope you found this informative and fun. Flee, run! Cut the flee part out. I think the rest of that is fine, but cut the flee part out. Thank you for watching this video. If you did like this video, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, ring the notifications bell, all of that loveliness. If you want to support the channel, I do have in the description of this video a Buy Me a Coffee link. There's also one on the channel banner as well, if you want to donate there. And yeah, if you subscribe, I might allow the editor to have just a teensy little bit of moonlight. Thank you also very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. I think. If there is a next time, there will be a next time.